Hello, entrepreneurs. We're back again with another exciting episode of the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today, it will be myself and Dr. Cornwall talking about his latest blog post, The Two Ditches of Growth. So stick around after this sponsorship message.
Bandwidth for today's show is brought to you by SoftLayer.com. We love SoftLayer here at Talkapolis. They are the greatest hosting company ever. They make everything easy. Check out their website at SoftLayer.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Hey guys, we are back. You did an excellent job making it through the sponsorship message. Thank you for that. Dr. Jeff Cornwall here again. And I believe your latest blog post is the Two Ditches of Growth, talking about the two biggest hazards to entrepreneurs and new businesses, kind of the two ways you can go awry in trying to grow your business.
Right. As a business starts to grow, you can err in two directions that can both lead to failure. One that people think about a lot is that entrepreneurs underprepare for growth. They don't understand the systems they need to put in place. They don't understand the issue of staffing and raising money and managing money, and so that underpreparedness of growth can veer you off the road and lead to failure. And that's a significant problem with a lot of companies. But we also see the other ditch where people kind of over-prepare and over-address some of the issues of growth. And so we see people put too restrictive of systems on what was a creative, fun, entrepreneurial company is now starting to feel like you're working for the state government all of a sudden in terms of processes and procedures that may be significant overkill. Yep. We see it in personnel practices. We see it in all aspects of the business, financially, human resources, structurally, everything. They try to act like this is a huge corporation when it's not. And what happens then is you can certainly anger a lot of employees and customers and drive them away because they came to you because you were a fun, cool, entrepreneurial company. And now you're not. Now you're like the big companies that a lot of them went away from to come to you. And we see a lot of surprising failure because people over-address things that way and they veer into the other ditch.
I believe I may be getting the quote from your dad wrong.
It's okay.
Maybe paraphrasing here, but the leading cause of failure for a lot of these companies is success and not being prepared for that success.
Correct.
And then it also said that your banker, and this was in one of your earlier ventures that ended up being successful, but not without some hitches along the way.
Serious hitches.
The banker also said that the ones he worries about the most are the ones that do really well right off the bat.
Right.
And that they look like they're going to go just through the roof, and then they end up hitting roadblocks. And what are your, I guess, most basic or most easily applied suggestions to avoiding those roadblocks?
Well, both ditches are a danger, and certainly if I erred on anything, I tended to err on the side of over-managing the organization. So for someone like me, my advice is ease up and don't forget what got you to this dance in the first place, which is, this is a really innovative new thing. It's going to take some time to work it out. The market's dynamic, and you got to stay entrepreneurial so you can stay with it. So, my advice to people like me that sometimes can overmanage things is don't forget what created this in the first place, which is you were an entrepreneurial venture that found a really cool niche and keep acting like one. On the other side, there's all kinds of things going on. You've got entrepreneurs that don't trust, aren't willing to delegate. We see sometimes that they bootstrap too far, too long, and while it is an entrepreneurial virtue to be a bootstrapper early on, there's a point when you got to spend a little bit of money. I was meeting with one of my alums the other day, and he kind of chuckled. He said, "Yeah, I took you a little too seriously in bootstrapping and almost killed the company. We didn't recognize that it was time to invest in some things and hire some talent that could handle the growth and the complexity that we're starting to get in terms of the number of customers." So I think you got to recognize where your weaknesses are and where your tendency is going to be to either under or over manage this, and try to steer towards that center course of a balance between systems, processes, procedures that are necessary without overdoing it to the point where you start to have detrimental effects in the organization. I mean, I hired a team that could have managed a national company, and I did it when we were in 2 major markets.
Okay.
And so not only did I make the mistake, but I compounded the mistake by hiring people who were really good at running large, complex organizations.
And you weren't big enough for them to do
And
what they're used to doing.
But they did what they're used to doing.
Okay.
And so one very sad day when it dawned on me what we were doing, and it was literally leading almost to the failure of our business at that point in time. I had to make we euphemistically say a major change around here, and
Yeah.
It was not a fun. It was actually a 2-day period when I just realized I had to root out a lot of this bureaucracy and people that kind of had that mentality.
Yeah.
To make sure we kept that entrepreneurial culture alive, because that's what our customers expected.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the appeals of your local, your startup businesses, is that it's probably easier to access the people that actually make decisions within the organization, to give feedback, to see that the customer is taken account for in the product or the service that you're providing. And like you said, if you have people that are expecting to run a multifaceted corporation that's all over a region, they're probably not going to respond on that personal level that people are expecting.
But it's a two-way street. It's not just how I respond to those customers, it's what I need from those customers in the early part of my organization. Because we never have our business model right at a startup. And we rarely have our business model completely right even a year or 2 into the deal. It's continuing to evolve and change, and we're getting it right, and as you grow, you start to focus in and get known for something a little bit more specific, and there can be some innovations that happen because of the turmoil in the marketplace that make you have to do some twists and turns. You're not ready to bureaucratize. When you've got something like McDonald's, then you can build something where it's the same in every store you go into, because that's a good point. But it took McDonald's years of experimentation and listening to their customers, not just engaging their customers in a friendly way, which is important, but actually listening to the customers, that kind of conversation that goes both ways, to figure out what they really wanted in that business model. I mean, it wasn't, people don't wake up one morning and have their business model exactly the way it should be. It's an evolutionary process with lots of pivots and turns and twists. And if you start to lock in too early and put too many processes, too much bureaucracy in place, you could well be locking into a business model that's just not going to work.
Okay. And this may be a trick question or just an unanswerable question. Of the 2 ditches, is there one that's easier to steer yourself out of if you see yourself going into, and one that's more difficult?
No, that's actually a good question. I think it's easier to start to put some systems and processes in place. I think that's an easier ditch to compensate for. The risk you run with the other ditch, when you kind of over systematize things too quickly, is you start to influence the culture and how people interact, on what they expect, on how they think they're supposed to behave. And it's really hard to undo culture once it changes.
Yeah.
We caught ours in the nick of time, and I've seen a lot of businesses that don't catch things in the nick of time. So I think if you're going to err on the side of maybe playing catch up and trying to keep up with systems, just knowing that you need to, that's probably the safer ditch. I think that's more of a ditch, and the other one's probably a cliff that you could fall off. But that wouldn't sound as good in the article to say a ditch
cliff
and a
and a
cliff.
ditch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought 2 ditches sounded better.
No, I think you completely went the right way with that.
Thank you.
Is there a framework of checks and balances that you can apply to startup businesses that'll help avoid getting into those ditches?
I think
And that may not be the right way to phrase it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good tools out today that I didn't have when I was an entrepreneur for the first time 40 years ago. There's a lot of tools out there today that I didn't have 15 years ago when I was an entrepreneur. There's some really nice tools in terms of being able to help the entrepreneur understand the totality of their business model, all the moving parts, to make sure they're not doing something over here that screws things up over there.
Okay.
There's an experience I always share with my students. We'll just say a large electronic retailer, and they all did this. They all got into this notion of selling us extended warranties, and it all made us mad. And it was kind of sad because they had built up this trust. The reason they had grown nationally and had such a following is I knew when I wanted to buy something at a really good price, really good quality stuff from somebody who knew about that product, I would go to that store and be any one of the big box electronics. They all had kind of that same business model. All of a sudden, the finance and the HR people said, hey, but we got to get more dollars out of each transaction to make the shareholders happy. So they schemed over, in this part of the organization, to come up with these compensation schemes, the HR people, that made the finance people happy. And so they came in and they made all the people on the floor, they lowered their pay and put these huge bonuses in place for these extended warranties, which customers really didn't need. So one day I'm walking in, and I'm going to buy a VCR for my kids. This dates the story a little bit. The VCRs are these things we used to record television shows back in the old days.
Yeah, and most of the time they just had a flashing 12 o'clock on the clock.
Mine still does, yes. Yeah. And so I was going to buy just a cheap one for the rec room for the kids. Yeah. And so I go into this store and I say, I want the cheapest, best VHS recorder you have. The guy goes, perfect, I got it. It's right over there. I sell 100 of these a week. They're great. They're the cheapest one, made by the best brand, and it's a simple machine. It'll be great. Great. I walk over, I grab a box, I start to walk away. All of a sudden I hear this, sir. And I kind of turn around. He said, don't you want an extended warranty for that, sir? I said, no, I don't think so. I'm good. I'm just going to take this up and check out and buy it. Take a couple more steps. Sir, you really need to buy an extended warranty for that. I said, no, I really don't. Took one more step, and he said, sir, that thing's a piece of crap, and if you don't buy extended warranty, you're going to be sorry. At which point, I took the VCR, set it on the nearest display, and walked out of the store. Now, that happened with thousands and thousands and thousands of customers in all of these retailers across the country. They all kind of revolted.
Yeah.
And a couple of the biggest ones got in very serious trouble. Well, what happened was they forgot how the whole business was working. It wasn't just working because the HR people and the finance people figured out how to make their employees work and sell more stuff. It worked because of the relationship.
The employees could actually sell the stuff.
And that was the value proposition. And they lost sight of what they were and what they were good at. So those tools kind of help us avoid those ditches when we can see the totality of the business and we can see, what the customer side of the business needs in terms of the operational side to be successful. We can start to anticipate what we need to fix over here to help this side as it grows.
Okay, excellent. Do you have any other wisdom you'd like to pass along from this week's blog post?
I think you nailed it. I think those were the main points.
Did you hear that, kids? I nailed it, and he's the doctor.
B+.
Who knew? I'll take it. It's better than almost all of the grades I got in any college course. Guys, that's it for the Entrepreneurial Mind today. I'm Brian Allen, Dr. Jeff Cornwall. He's the expert. We'll catch you next week.